The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse like an angry fist demanding entry. 40 stories above Manhattan, Marcus Whitmore stood alone in the dark, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. The amber liquid caught the city lights below. Thousands of tiny lives moving through their evening routines, oblivious to the man watching from his tower of glass and steel. 6 months. 6 months since Sarah had walked out of this very room, her wedding ring left on the marble kitchen counter like a period at the end of a sentence he'd never wanted to finish. 6 months since the divorce papers arrived at his office, delivered by a messenger who couldn't meet his eyes. 6 months of silence so loud it drowned out everything else. Marcus was 42 years old and had built an empire. Whitmore Capital had made him a billionaire before he turned 35. He'd closed deals worth hundreds of millions with a single phone call, had senators and CEOs on speed dial, owned properties in 7 states. His face had graced the covers of Forbes and Fortune. He'd wanted everything. Everything except the one thing that mattered. The penthouse reflected his success. All modern edges and expensive emptiness. Minimalist furniture that had been featured in Architectural Digest. Art that cost more than most people's homes. A kitchen with appliances he never used. 3 bedrooms he never entered. It was a monument to achievement and a mausoleum for a marriage that had slowly suffocated under the weight of his ambition. Sarah used to fill these rooms with warmth, plants on the windowsills, books stacked on the coffee table. Her laugh echoing off the high ceilings when she'd tease him about working too late again. But he'd been too busy building his fortune to notice he was losing his wife. Too many late nights at the office, too many missed dinners, too many promises broken in the name of just one more deal. By the time he'd looked up from his desk, she was already gone. Marcus set down the whiskey, still untouched. He didn't drink anymore. Not since the divorce. It felt like cheating somehow, numbing the pain he knew he deserved to feel. This emptiness, this crushing loneliness that wrapped around his chest like iron bands. It was his penance, his reminder that money couldn't buy back time, couldn't resurrect love left to die of neglect. The city below blurred as exhaustion pulled at his eyes. Another 18-hour day at the office. Another evening alone in a home that had never felt emptier. He should eat something, sleep, do any of the basic human things that kept a person functioning. His phone rang. The sound shattered the silence like breaking glass. Marcus glanced at the screen. Unknown number. He almost let it go to voicemail. It was nearly 11 o'clock. And any business call could wait until morning. But something made him answer. Maybe intuition, maybe just the desperate hope that any voice, even a stranger's, might fill the void for a moment. "Whitmore," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "Mr. Whitmore?" A woman's voice, professional but strained. "This is Rebecca Chen from Mount Sinai Hospital. I'm calling because..." "Sir, we need you to come to the hospital immediately." His heart stopped. "What happened? Is Sarah?" "No, sir. This concerns a patient named Emma Hartley." A pause. "She's in critical condition following a car accident this evening, and..." Another pause, longer this time. "Mr. Whitmore, she's 8 months pregnant, and before she lost consciousness, she named you as the father." The hospital corridor smelled like antiseptic and bad coffee. Marcus's expensive Italian shoes squeaked against the linoleum as he followed Nurse Chen through the maze of hallways, his mind racing faster than his heart. Emma Hartley. The name had hit him like a physical blow when the nurse said it on the phone. Emma. He hadn't seen her in over a year, hadn't allowed himself to even think her name in months. And now, "She's stable for now," Nurse Chen was saying, her voice clinical but kind. "The baby too. But Mr. Whitmore, you need to understand, the accident was severe. She has internal bleeding, and we may need to perform an emergency C-section. We need family here to make medical decisions if she can't." "I'm not family," Marcus said, the words tasting like ash. "I don't understand why she would..." "Room 427, the nurse said, stopping at a door. "There's someone waiting to speak with you." She pushed open the door and Marcus froze. Sarah sat in the plastic visitor's chair beside Emma's bed, her arms crossed, her face a mask of barely contained fury. His ex-wife looked exactly as she had 6 months ago. Honey blonde hair pulled back, green eyes that could cut through steel, that stubborn set to her jaw that meant she was ready for battle. She'd always been beautiful when she was angry. "Hello, Marcus," Sarah said, her voice ice over fire. He couldn't find words. His eyes moved from Sarah to the woman in the hospital bed. Emma, pale and still. Monitors beeping softly. Her pregnant belly a mountain beneath the thin hospital blanket. Bruises darkened her arms. A bandage covered her left temple. "You're wondering what I'm doing here," Sarah continued, standing. She was shorter than he remembered, or maybe he'd just forgotten how small she could make him feel. "Emma's my best friend, has been since college. Did you know that? Or were you too busy not asking questions when you were sleeping with her?" "Sarah," his voice cracked. "No." She held up a hand. "You don't get to explain. Not yet. Emma called me tonight, Marcus. Right before the accident. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She said she'd been trying to reach you for months. Months. That she'd left voicemails, sent emails, even showed up at your office twice. Your assistant turned her away." The words landed like punches. Marcus felt his knees weaken. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't." "You didn't know because you never let yourself know." Sarah's voice trembled now, anger giving way to something deeper. Pain. "Just like you never knew I was falling apart in our marriage. Just like you never knew I spent 2 years begging you to just see me. You're very good at not knowing things, Marcus. It's your superpower." He wanted to defend himself, wanted to explain that after the divorce he'd told his assistant to screen everything, that he'd been drowning and couldn't bear any more complications. But the explanation died in his throat because Sarah was right. He'd built walls so high he couldn't see over them anymore. "When?" he asked quietly. "When did Emma and I—" "Last year, during our separation." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "She didn't know who you were when you met. Just some heartbroken man at a hotel bar in Chicago. You were both broken that night, I guess. She told me it was one time. One night of 2 people trying to forget their pain." Marcus closed his eyes. Chicago. The tech conference. He'd been so angry at Sarah, so hurt, so desperate to feel anything other than the emptiness. And Emma, he barely remembered her face that night. Just kind eyes and soft words, and the temporary illusion of not being alone. "She tried to tell you," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "For 8 months, Marcus. She tried. And now she's lying here. And that baby, your baby, might not have a mother when it's born." She wiped her eyes furiously. "So you need to decide right now what kind of man you're going to be, because that little girl in there deserves better than another Whitmore ghost." The monitors beeped steadily. Emma didn't move, and Marcus felt the weight of every mistake he'd ever made pressing down on his chest like a stone. Marcus didn't leave the hospital that night, or the next. By the 3rd day, the nurses stopped questioning his presence in the waiting room, bringing him coffee without asking, offering sympathetic smiles that said they'd seen this before. Men sitting vigil for the lives they'd failed to protect. Emma remained unconscious. The doctors called it a medically induced coma, giving her body time to heal while they monitored the baby. Every 6 hours, Marcus was allowed into her room for 15 minutes. He sat in the chair Sarah had occupied that first night and watched Emma breathe. This stranger who carried his child, this woman whose face he'd forgotten until he saw it pale against the hospital pillows. Sarah came every day too. They developed an unspoken schedule. She took mornings, he took afternoons, and evenings they shared intense silence. 2 people bound together by guilt and an unborn child neither of them knew how to protect. On the 4th night, Marcus found Sarah crying in the hospital chapel. It was nearly midnight. He'd been heading to the cafeteria for his 3rd cup of terrible coffee when he heard the sound. Soft, broken sobs echoing in the empty room. She sat in the front pew, her shoulders shaking, her face buried in her hands. He should have walked away, given her privacy, but his feet moved forward instead, and before he could think better of it, he was sitting beside her, close enough to feel her pain, but far enough to respect the wall still between them. "She's my best friend," Sarah whispered without looking up. "We met freshman year of college. She helped me through my father's death. I was her maid of honor when she married David. And I held her when he left her for another woman 2 years ago." Her voice cracked. "She didn't know who you were that night, Marcus. She just saw someone as broken as she was. Marcus swallowed hard. I don't remember much about that night. I was drunk, angry. I felt like my whole world had ended when you asked for the separation. Your world ended? Sarah finally looked at him, her eyes red and fierce. I spent 2 years trying to save our marriage. 2 years watching you choose everything else over me. Over us, every single time. I know. The words came out raw. I know, and I can't take it back. I can't. His voice broke. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I thought success meant something more than it did. And now there's a baby, Sarah, a baby girl who's going to be born into this mess I created. They sat in silence. The chapel's stained glass windows were dark, the moon hidden behind clouds. Somewhere in the hospital, machines beeped and monitors hummed and lives hung in balance. The doctors said they might have to deliver soon, Sarah said quietly. Emma's bleeding isn't stopping. They're giving her another day, maybe 2, but that baby is coming whether she's ready or not. Marcus felt terror grip his chest. I don't know how to be a father. I don't know how to. None of us know. Sarah's hand moved across the pew, not quite touching his, but close enough to feel the warmth. My mother told me once that you become a parent the moment you realize you give up everything to protect someone you haven't even met yet. She paused. Are you there yet, Marcus? Or are you still the man who chooses everything else? He thought about the past 4 days. The business calls he'd ignored, the meetings he'd canceled, the empire that had seemed so important now feeling like dust in his hands. He thought about the ultrasound image the nurse had shown him. A perfect little face, eyes closed, thumb near her mouth. His daughter, a person who would look to him for everything and deserved so much more than he knew how to give. I'm terrified, he admitted, but I'm here, and I'm not leaving. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, then so softly he almost missed it. That's a start. Her hand moved the final inch. Her fingers brushed his, tentative and warm. They didn't hold hands, not quite, but they didn't pull away either. 2 broken people in a dark chapel, connected by tragedy and tiny hope, beginning to remember what it felt like not to be alone. Outside the chapel, a nurse walked by, her shoes squeaking on linoleum. The coffee machine hummed in the distance, and in room 427, monitors beeped steadily, counting down the hours until everything would change. In the morning, the doctors would make their decision. But tonight, for the first time in 6 months, Marcus and Sarah sat together in the darkness and didn't feel quite so lost. The alarm screamed at 3:47 a.m. Marcus jolted awake in the waiting room chair, his heart already racing before his mind understood why. Medical staff rushed past him toward Emma's room, too many of them, moving too fast. He stumbled to his feet, his body stiff from days of sleeping in chairs, and ran after them. What's happening? He demanded, but no one answered. The hallway was chaos, doctors shouting orders, nurses wheeling equipment, that piercing alarm cutting through everything like a knife. Sarah appeared from somewhere, her face white with terror. She grabbed his arm. They won't let me in. Marcus, what's happening? Through the doorway of room 427, he caught glimpses. Emma's monitors flashing red, her body seizing, doctors surrounding the bed like a human wall. One voice rose above the rest. She's hemorrhaging. We need to deliver now. Get an OR ready, stat. No, no, no. Sarah's knees buckled and Marcus caught her, holding her up even as his own legs threatened to give out. Dr. Patel emerged from the room, already pulling off his gloves, his face grave. Mr. Whitmore? Ms. Whitmore, we're taking Emma for an emergency C-section. The placenta has ruptured. We have maybe minutes to save them both. Both? Marcus couldn't breathe. The word was a fist around his lungs. The baby? 28 minutes until that baby is in distress. Emma's already critical. Dr. Patel's eyes were kind but unflinching. I won't lie to you. This is the worst-case scenario. We'll do everything we can, but you need to prepare yourselves. We might not be able to save them both. The world tilted. Marcus heard Sarah sob beside him, felt her fingers digging into his arm, but everything seemed far away, like he was underwater. They were wheeling Emma out now, her face so pale it was almost translucent, tubes and wires trailing behind her, like the strings of a broken marionette. Wait! Marcus broke free from Sarah and ran to the gurney, The nurses tried to stop him, but he pushed through, his hand finding Emma's where it lay limp against the white sheets. Her skin was cold. Too cold. "Emma," he said, his voice breaking. "Emma, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have answered your calls. I should have been there. I should have—" His throat closed. "Please don't leave her. Please. That baby girl needs her mother. She needs you." Emma's eyes didn't open. The machines kept beeping their terrible rhythm. The nurses were pulling him back, pulling the gurney away, and Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Something he'd thought was already broken, but had apparently still been whole enough to shatter. "Sir, you need to let us go." "I love her," he said suddenly, the words erupting from somewhere deep and true. "I don't even know her, but I love her, because she's carrying my daughter, and she tried to tell me, and I was too much of a coward to listen, and I—" He was crying now, tears streaming down his face in front of nurses and doctors and strangers. "Please save them. Please, I'll give anything. Everything. Just save them." They wheeled Emma through the double doors toward surgery. The doors swung shut with a final, terrible sound. And Marcus stood in the hallway, his hands shaking, his heart splintering, realizing too late what mattered and what didn't. Sarah's hand found his shoulder. She was crying too, mascara streaking her cheeks, her perfect composure completely destroyed. "She's strong," Sarah whispered. "Emma's the strongest person I know. She survived David leaving, survived rebuilding her whole life alone. She can survive this." What if she doesn't? Marcus turned to face his ex-wife, this woman he'd loved and lost and hurt so badly. What if I lose them both? What if that baby is born and her mother is gone and I'm all she has, and Sarah? I don't know how to be enough. I've never been enough. I failed you. I failed Emma. I'll fail her too. "Stop." Sarah grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. Her green eyes were fierce through the tears. "Stop running from the fear, Marcus. That's what you always did. You ran into your work, into your success, into anything that wasn't real and messy and terrifying. But that baby in there, she's real. She's coming whether you're ready or not. And you get to choose right now. Are you going to run, or are you finally going to stay?" The hallway was empty now except for them. The alarm had stopped. Somewhere beyond those doors, doctors were fighting for two lives. Marcus hadn't even known mattered until they were slipping away. He thought about his penthouse, empty and cold. His office, sterile and meaningless. His empire, built on sacrifices that had cost him everything that mattered. And he thought about a tiny face on an ultrasound screen, a daughter he'd never met, a woman who'd tried to reach him while he hid behind walls of his own making. "I'm staying," he said, his voice steady for the first time in days. "Whatever happens in there, whatever comes next, I'm staying." Sarah nodded. She didn't smile, didn't forgive, but she took his hand, and together they sat down in the waiting room chairs and waited for the news that would change everything. The clock on the wall ticked forward. 4:03 a.m., then 4:04, each minute an eternity, each second a prayer neither of them knew how to say. The sun rose over Manhattan at 6:23 a.m., painting the hospital windows gold. Marcus watched it from the waiting room, his eyes burning from exhaustion and tears, Sarah asleep with her head on his shoulder. Neither of them had moved in 2 hours. The surgery doors opened. Dr. Patel walked toward them, still in his scrubs, his mask pulled down. Marcus couldn't read his face, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but wait for words that would either rebuild his world or destroy it completely. "She made it," Dr. Patel said, and Marcus felt his knees buckle with relief. "Emma's stable. The surgery was complicated, but she's strong. She'll need time to recover, but she's going to be okay." Sarah was crying again, her hands covering her mouth. Marcus couldn't speak, could only wait for the rest. "And your daughter," Dr. Patel continued, a smile finally breaking through his exhaustion, "is in the NICU. 4 pounds, 6 ounces, small, but her lungs are good. She's breathing on her own. She's a fighter, Mr. Whitmore." The world came back into focus all at once, sound and light and hope flooding through the cracks in Marcus's chest. "Can I see her?" "Emma first," Dr. Patel said gently. "She's asking for you." Emma looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, her dark hair spread across the pillow, her brown eyes tired but alert. When Marcus entered the room, her hand moved slightly, not quite reaching out, but not pulling away either. "Hi," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus crossed the room and sat in the chair beside her bed. Up close, he could see the freckles across her nose, the small scar above her left eyebrow. All the details he'd been too drunk and desperate to notice that night in Chicago. She was beautiful. Not in the polished way Sarah was beautiful, but in something softer, warmer. "I'm sorry," he said, the words inadequate but necessary, "for everything, for not answering your calls, for making you go through this alone, for being the kind of man who runs from things that scare him." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know who you were that night. Didn't know you were married, separated, any of it. I don't do this. One-night stands with strangers in hotel bars. But you seemed so sad, and I was so broken, and—" She wiped her eyes carefully, mindful of the IV in her hand. "When I found out I was pregnant and tracked you down, I wasn't trying to trap you. I just thought you deserved to know. That she deserved to have a father who wanted her. I want her," Marcus said fiercely. "I want both of you. I don't know how to do this. Emma, I don't know how to be a good father or a good man or anything other than a workaholic who destroys everything he touches. But I want to learn. I want to try." Emma studied his face for a long moment. "Sarah told me about your marriage, about how you chose everything else over her." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I won't do that, Marcus. I won't be with someone who makes me second place, and I definitely won't let our daughter grow up feeling like she's not enough." "You won't have to." Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand covered hers. "I've spent 6 months learning what matters, and it's not the money or the empire or any of it. It's this. You, her, being present for the people who need me." "Words are easy," Emma said quietly. "I know." He squeezed her hand gently. "So let me show you. Let me be here every day. Let me learn how to feed her and change her and wake up at 3 a.m. when she cries. Let me prove I'm not the man I was a year ago." Emma was quiet, searching his face for truth. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, but Marcus, one chance. That's all we get in life. One chance to be the people our kids deserve." "One chance," he agreed. "I won't waste it." In the NICU, behind glass walls and warm lights, a tiny baby girl slept in an incubator. She had Emma's dark hair and, the nurses said, her father's stubborn chin. She didn't have a name yet. Emma wanted to wait, wanted to choose together. Marcus stood at the window with Sarah beside him, both of them staring at this impossibly small person who had shattered and rebuilt their worlds in a matter of days. "She's perfect," Sarah whispered. "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "She really is." Sarah turned to him. "I don't forgive you yet. For us. For our marriage. That's going to take time. Maybe forever. I know. But I'm proud of you. For staying. For trying." She smiled sadly. "It's what I always wanted to see." Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in his throat. Through the glass, his daughter yawned, her tiny fist stretching above her head. And for the first time in 6 months, maybe in his entire life, Marcus Whitmore felt like he was exactly where he belonged. The brownstone in Brooklyn was nothing like the penthouse. It had creaky floors and a backyard barely big enough for a swing set. The kitchen was small, the walls needed paint, and sometimes the heater made strange noises at night. Marcus had never loved a place more. He stood at the window, watching Emma push their daughter on the swing, little Grace, named after Emma's grandmother, laughing as the autumn leaves swirled around them. She was walking now, 14 months old and fearless, with her mother's smile and her father's determination. Sarah visited often. She and Emma had rebuilt their friendship slowly, carefully, like mending torn fabric. Last month, Sarah had started dating again, a kind man who taught high school English and made her laugh. She'd brought him to Grace's birthday party, and Marcus had shaken his hand and meant it when he said he was happy for her. Whitmore Capital still existed, but Marcus had hired a CEO. He worked from home now, consulting part-time, spending his mornings with Grace and his evenings with Emma. They weren't married, weren't even officially together yet, but they were building something real, something that looked like trust and felt like love. Emma came through the back door, Grace on her hip, both of them flushed from the cold. "Someone wants her daddy," she said, and Grace reached for him with chubby hands. Marcus took his daughter, breathing in the scent of her baby shampoo and fallen leaves. Grace patted his cheek with her tiny hand and said, "Dada," and his heart did what it always did, broke open with joy. Emma leaned against the doorframe, watching them with soft eyes. "You're a good father, Marcus." "I'm trying," he said. "Every day, I'm trying." "I know." She crossed the room and kissed his cheek. "That's enough." Outside, the sun set over Brooklyn. Inside, a family, imperfect and healing and real, sat down to dinner. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Whitmore had everything that mattered. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.